This is Pete, or I'm just going to maybe call it the modality, or the healing modality, or the process, or rapid rewire, or something that is beneficial for everybody, but you don't have to refer to it as Pete. This is just what the founder of the method called it. And clearly, he's got some woo woo mojo up in his brain because he literally named it, of course, an acronym. Really, really intensely intelligent people have acronyms for everything. And this one is no exception. Primordial, it just means back to the basics. And energy activation, we are going to activate your energy today. It's already activated. We're just going to activate in a slightly different way for your healing purposes. And then transcendence, which is, of course, the foundation of this technology. And I'll explain more why he calls it a spiritual technology. And throughout this whole presentation, please, it is not a one-way street at all. Everyone in here already knows many elements, if not all, of the elements I will present. And some of you might say, well, if I know it all, why am I here? Well, because I'm going to package it up in a way where you can harness what you already know in a more specific or unique way. Yes, Natasha. It is, but the only thing that is on screen is just Melissa. And Melissa, if you don't mind being on screen recording, I don't even think people can see you. I think they can only see the presenter. But yeah, it'll be up on the YouTube of TS later. And I will send out, if you'd like, the entire slide deck, if you'd like. Yeah, so no need to ferociously take notes, but take whatever you'd like. So the main, oops. I'm gonna minimize this so that I don't have to see this. Yeah. So the reason why the guy who created all this, and I'll tell you a lot more about him later, the reason why he called it a spiritual technology, we don't usually equate those two words together, spirituality and technology. Although if you were able to, really look at some parallels and you're good at analyzing symbols or metaphors, you could see probably how certain spiritual aspects of your practice, your spiritual practice, or spiritual practices in general, the act of being spiritual, there can be a technological aspect to it. Can anyone think of why there could be something called spiritual technology? Because technology is very precise, right? Like there's algorithms, there's formulas. Manja is a program engineer or programmer, right? Yeah. And so she literally works with technology daily. And spirituality is more like fluid and woo woo and the opposite of very specific, maybe, or maybe it can be very specific and methodical and A plus B equals C, or I don't know, Einstein's relativity formula, or I'm clearly not a science person, but we have the best of both worlds in this particular modality. And so that's just the original term for this body of work. And we're not doing anything today with mindset or coping skills, which is what I would assume if I were in your shoes and coming here and trying to listen to this thing, I would assume, no, yeah, we're going to work on mindset. We're going to work on how to have the skills to deal with our issues. It's not about that at the core of it. It is about making the unconscious conscious. It is about working with our consciousness in a way that the tech part is very, very structured, very repeatable, and very algorithmic, if you will. And there's nothing wrong inherently with algorithms, right? Or equations or mathematical situations or things or elements. And in fact, now sacred geometry, that's become a thing in the spiritual world. We're finally really overlapping technology or numbers and figures and algorithms and equations with the more fluid aspects of spirituality, such as emotions, enlightenment, if you will. So we're bridging the analytical, which is great because I was born with a very, very analytical brain, but that brain also came from a very fear-based place, or it does, right? This technology shows us the mechanism, the part of us where, in relation to the spiritual part of us, the mystical part of us, we can do something called de-identification. Everyone in here has heard of it, or most of you have heard of de-identification? Yeah, good, good, thank you. You'll give me nods or no's, and then I will expound. No, okay. In Buddhism, if you studied Buddhism or done anything Buddhist-like, even just go to a Zen meditation or participate in a Zen koan or a Zen seishin, which is a session where you are doing a more intense meditation. In meditation, or excuse me, in Buddhism, this idea of de-identification is to unlatch your identity from all the what's. I just told you that I'm Peony Lee, but am I really that? Very matrixy, right? And that aspect, I think most people understand. De-identifying is, according to Buddhism or pure Buddhism, that pure awakening. But how can you truly de-identify from everything? You probably can't truly do that until you are passed over and you no longer have a body or transitioned. And it just means you just don't have a body. That's all. It doesn't mean you cease to exist. And so that idea of consciousness, making the unconscious conscious, that is part of the framework of what we're doing in this body of work in this spiritual technology. So it is very practical and grounded, but it's also a roadmap. We're going to take something called emotional charges, which I'll tell you about in a moment, and we're going to get us on the path to liberation, being free, being free. So that, in a nutshell, de-identification, there's liberation, there's ideas about emotional charge. That all is encompassed in all of this as spiritual technology. And by the way, yes, anytime anyone has a wondering, a question, a comment, an anecdote, anything at all, please don't hesitate to interrupt. Raise your hand or not, just interrupt. Yeah, you do not have to raise your hand. It's not a classroom. Well, yes and no. We'll do what you feel like, but please don't hesitate to interrupt. All right. It behooves me to tell you just really quickly why I'm doing this. What is the personal, powerful part of this for me? Because it's probably the most powerful thing that I can tell you today. My own personal testimony, and I'll give you the Cliff's Notes version. Back in 2018, my employer accused me of a lot of horrendous things. Harassment, intimidation, bullying charges, unprofessional, like a whole host of things, 99% of which were completely unfounded. So these elements just sort of all snowballed and culminated in one situation with students. And because the employer wanted to maintain their reputation, I was then inadvertently, and no one was like maliciously doing anything, right? It was just the way things snowballed together that I inadvertently became the scapegoat for this thing that my employer was going to then help them not to get sued, right? Or help them to win if they get sued. So I was the last chair standing in musical chairs. That awakened me. It was like being pummeled with a 2x4. And I mean, I was what, 36 or 35? No, 33. Yeah, Jesus's age, which is funny. I was 33 or 32, something like that. And yeah, I'd never experienced anything like that. When you are down and there's nowhere else to go, but you are truly down, 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 and you're just flattened, steamrolled on the floor, that's when you can be really awakened. You can really rise all the way high up. And so I started for those 5 years after, right? A lot of self-study, a lot of self-learning. That was when I read A Course in Miracles, The Shift in Perception from Fear to Love, right? One of the most well-known metaphysical texts. That changed my life and helped me to not be like flattened on the ground. Lots of therapy, though on and off, not the whole 5 years, and then various spiritual practices. And then 2 years ago, something else happened, another awakening, where I was also accused of horrendous things, 100% of which were untrue, by my ex-partner. And I was with child, and it all came out of nowhere. So it was very, very sudden, as you can imagine, and traumatic, but it's because of this modality that I was not like flattened on the ground. The day that it happened, sure, I slept maybe 20 minutes, but the very next day, because as soon as I got home to the situation, the very next day I could sleep 1 hour, and the very next day after that I could sleep 2 hours, and the very next day I could, you get the point. Back in 2018, I didn't sleep for weeks and weeks and weeks, right? I was so traumatized. My body was just in complete dysregulation. But this time, because I had access to this technology, because someone processed me literally the moment I got home to the situation, and the day after, and the day after, and the day after, it was the equivalent of having months of traditional therapy, if you will, or even years, I would say. All of this here laid out is exactly what I have done in the last 2 years intensely. Um, for sure, nearly every day, although for sure every week. And then in the aftermath of October 2023, I was being processed at least once a day. And each process takes about, 20 minutes to an hour and a half. It depends on how deep you want to go with the technology. But it saved me.
When you say
Yeah.
you were being processed, is this something you were doing to yourself or were you doing it with a partner?
Thank you, Lori, right?
Mm-hmm.
Both, both. I was able to process myself. But it's kind of like giving yourself a massage versus getting one. It's slightly more effective, relationally, when someone is holding that space for you and helping to facilitate it for you so that you can really be in the technology and you're doing that spiritual work, which is the healing. And again, I emphasize this for the third time, it saved me because not only was all this trauma, first of all, like a point two chapter, of what had happened first, but this time, unlike the first time, I was able to go into the depths of childhood. It had nothing to do with my ex-partner, nearly nothing. He's just a catalyst. The situation is a catalyst for all that, right? All this childhood, complete shame, utter shame, piece of shitness identities, right? um, so much loss, so much self criticism. And really, that's what shame is. It's not, guilt is like you did something bad, and shame is just I am bad and I'm a piece of shit. That kind of stuff all came out. And it was completely related to the circumstance, right? Even though it wasn't, but it was because I had to dive deep into the core identities that I had. And we're going to learn something called prime polarities today. Polarities were these two dualities within me, these two core concepts, love versus loss, control versus surrender. I had to deal and work with those and merge those. And we all have those dualities within us, some core dualities that you and I all came into this lifetime with. And we decided these are going to be our main themes with core polarities. And then these are some sub polarities, and these are some sub dualities. Of course, we come in all overlapping with, it's not like my polarities are unique to me, but I got to heal them in this case. And the difference is it took me, like, even in 2020 I was still recovering, so to speak, from what happened in 2018. But this time, again, I give you the literal example of for the day and the day and the day and by day 7 after the aftermath of a 2x4 hitting me, I could sleep a full 8 hours. That is impossible for someone previously like me, or was me. In 2018 I didn't sleep for weeks, just like 30 minutes a day, maybe on and off. You take naps, but like you're not, you know, regulating your body in the right way. You either have too much appetite or you don't have. And I never have an appetite when I'm in high stress and high trauma. Yeah. Just pausing here for a moment. Can all of you see, though, the way you've lived your life or what has transpired in your life? Can you see any difference between how you were or how you would respond or behave 10 years ago to XYZ, whatever the situation that would have triggered you, versus today, the present you responding to a similar or same circumstance, is that the same you, or has it progressed, so to speak? Have you grown? Have you gotten more resilient? Has your spiritual practice helped you? You can give me a thumbs up or a sideways. Yeah, okay, cool. Yes, yes, you can. So good. Good news is we are progressing. Yay. That's not an arrogant yay. That's a confident yay. That's the light that we are meant to bask in and remember. So good. This is just a really methodical, quick way to do that kind of work. One of which is a whole tableau of 1,000 methods. Find what works for you. But this has really worked for me. All right. So you wanted to know who this guy is who came up with all this stuff. His name is Zivorad Slavinski. He died already, okay? But his protege, Vladimir Stojevic, if you speak Russian, let me know. I butchered that. He's still alive. And Vladimir and Zivorad trained the guy who trained me. Zivorad only trained a handful of people, including Vladimir, before he passed away. And my mentor teacher, the person who personally trained me and a bunch of people in my little small cohort, yeah, my personal mentor teacher, Wesley, he is one of the handful of people that Zivorad trained before he passed. You know, so he has that distinguishment, and I got the distinguishment of learning from him. He also learned from Vladimir. And these two guys combined, they put this is just a sample of the many books. There's not that many more. I think there's like 5 more between the two of them. But you could see like these books would be stuck in some dusty corner of this library and it'd be really boring to pour through. The way it's even written is really dense. But it is so simple when you understand some core principles. And that's what I'm here to teach you all today, or showcase, is condensing that information. This guy, Zivorad, he had been a psychologist for 60 some years, okay? And he discovered that all these modalities out there, EFT, emotional freedom technique, EMDR, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, name any acronym under the sun, EMDR. He studied every single modality in the past 50, 60 years, and he discovered that while effective, there were parts of them that were not really actually doing the healing. And he defined that healing as that spiritual aspect of transcendence. You are able to somehow transcend beyond the problem and change your relationship to the problem that you're having. Right. So that's the spiritual part. And Zivorad himself was not just a psychologist, he was a mystic. Right. That was his gig on the side. And so he was able to basically take all the active ingredients within all these modalities in the psychotherapy world. And sort of, there's a scene in Armageddon where Bruce Willis throws out all this bullshit mechanics in the spaceship that NASA had provided him to go and, obliterate the asteroid that was gonna, obliterate the Earth. He's like, what the hell is this way? That's sort of what Zivorad did. He threw out all the unnecessary components to him that were unnecessary, and he kept what worked in every single modality, which is pretty cool. Caveat here, right? I am a certified coach. I'm a certified, secondary teacher in the state of Washington. I'm licensed that way. I'm not a licensed psychotherapist. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a licensed social worker, et cetera, et cetera. So that's okay though, because this method isn't about therapy. He was a therapy. He was a a psychologist, but we don't have to be licensed therapists, because we don't need to, or at least I don't need to ever diagnose you, make evaluations about you if I'm working with you, come to some conclusion. You do this all on your own. You find the answer within yourself. And the only thing that I do as a coach is direct you. And that's why anyone would ever bother seeing someone who's not a therapist, such as a coach, is because they feel that they can be directed to something useful for them, right? So, caveat, of course, this is not ever putting down traditional therapy at all. But it's just that because it has condensed the most useful active parts of these traditional therapeutic modalities, or I should say psychotherapeutic modalities, It just works so quickly and so rapidly and so precisely. So that's the technology part. Um, yeah, he discarded the rest, right? He was ruthless in his efficiency. He only kept the parts in any modality that truly shifted consciousness. And he discarded the rest. And even if they were very brandable, everybody in here know EFT tapping, right? Okay. The tapping part is you are tapping meridian point. Awesome. Awesome. And it's not that if you do or don't do the tapping, it is more or less effective. But for him, he discovered it wasn't the tapping itself. This might be blasphemous to say to people who are EFT certified, right? But I've taken so many of the class, and yes, Robert has as well. But if you know this, it's going to enhance what you already practice, Robert, right? It does not take away from what you already know. But it wasn't, according to Zivorad, the tapping that is doing the actual shifting of the consciousness. It was the duplication of the emotional charge, which we'll talk about soon. But harness this information, right? Because once you know it, and whatever it might be, it could be Reiki, it could be any other healing modality. Harness everything that you have learned in core principles today. That is my job, is just to deliver the core principles and do a demo healing session with all of you. So what you're learning is a refined distillation of decades of experimentation. Okay. He pulled the best out of psychotherapy, and again, to reiterate what the overlap is, right? If therapy aims at mental illness, it aims at personality disorders, it aims at some kind of psychological dysfunction, this only aims at emotional issues and spiritual liberation. Do they overlap? Yes. Are they completely the same? No. No. Mental illnesses can be, chemical. It can be some other thing. It's a whole host of things that I'm not certified to talk about or have any expertise about. But this spiritual technology assumes that emotional charge, and I'll talk about that a little bit more, but you can probably guess the emotional charge is always going to be a byproduct of something living and forming in you as a personality. Like who Peony came in this lifetime, who you, and then we all have, of course, look at human design, look at your astrology, look at XYZ. We're all made differently. So you having this kind of emotional charge versus me having the same, but maybe lesser or more, or you have that, or you have that. Those are all byproducts of just the personality that we came into this lifetime with, is Zivorad's premise. So even being a licensed psychotherapist, he was willing and very happy to step out of the traditional psychotherapy world and understand that instead of just rearranging the furniture in the room, which is what a lot of traditional modalities do, he likens it to eliminating the furniture that was blocking us from living our best life. Yeah. And if you think about if you've ever had therapy, there is a lot of rearranging of the furniture. Not bad. We do need to feng shui up the room or rearrange things so that there's more flow. But maybe sometimes you got to get rid of some pieces of furniture that have been there for a long time that no longer serve us. Right? Okay, so we're deleting problematic furniture, such as like limiting thoughts or beliefs, emotions that aren't particularly serving that moment, although there's no such thing as a bad moment. And then with therapy, it's very open-ended, right? It's very interpretive, it's very relational. But with spiritual technology, again, there's an algorithmic method to it. There's clear step-by-step processes that when followed, it will do the thing that it promises to do, when followed. And one of the things that I'm going to ask you to do is to follow the direction, which is to, later at the end of this, I'm going to ask you to feel the very thing that you don't want to feel. As long as you do that, it will work. Okay, and I'll explain how. Okay, thank you for. And anyone have any questions, comments, anecdotes, wonderings? All right. Making the unconscious conscious. I mentioned that as the core part of the spiritual part of this technology before. According to Zivorad, emotional problems form when, okay, shit happens, stuff hits the fan, my ex does what my ex does, my employer did what my employer did, I inadvertently responded the way I did. So then we have these thoughts and feelings come up and we call them negative for now, just because it's unwanted. That's all, not because they're actually negative. Most of the time, we don't allow them to naturally arise and then pass through us. Why would we? Because uh, we're not programmed that way. If I am in a car accident right now and it just happened, what does my body naturally want to do? I'm physically okay, but what would it probably do? Just shout it out. Huge accident, huge. 4-car pile up. Everyone's okay, thankfully. No one has died and no one has suffered grave injuries. But what would my body do sitting in the car after the clench up? Probably tremble. Exactly. What else? Shake, go into shock. Something would physiologically happen. Okay. Vocally, I might even want to scream. Responsively, emotionally, I might want to cry. I might want to yell. Guess what? I don't end up doing none of this. I don't end up doing any of this because I've been conditioned to call 911 right away and check if my passengers are okay. And I've been conditioned to immediately go from my instinctual response, my body response, my spiritual response, my soul, you call it the animal response, to my prefrontal cortex. Let Peony be the project manager that she is and just manage all that is going on. Do you know why wild animals don't get PTSD?
They shake off.
Yeah. They are purely in their instinctual animalistic self. Well, they're wild animals. Why did domesticated animals get PTSD? And go up one level, why do domesticated mammals such as us, why do humans get PTSD? Because we have narratives. We have more capability than wild animals, don't we? We can create stories. We have symbolism. We have metaphor. We have memories that go lifetimes. We have all these things that help us not be just a wild animal. It's something different, something more. But it also gives us the ability to then have some unwanted experiences, such as PTSD, right? Such as the debilitating fact that I can never go near water again. This is an example, because I watched my friend drown. That's pretty intense, and a lot of people suffer that way, right? And that's an intense example, but we all have triggers. It can just be a conversation you've had with your loved one. Okay, something in your past that we have somehow suppressed or not fully processed. That's just the definition of trauma. And what we resist persists. So all our triggers in life accumulate as charges. And I did mention emotional charge before. Right now, if I were to ask you about that charge of anxiousness on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being my anxiousness is so debilitating, I can't even talk to you, Peony, or 0, it is neutral. 1, it exists, but it's very close to neutral. Give me a finger or fingers, not the finger. What would your anxiousness be? I'm just choosing one emotion. You could just do 0 if it's 0, or you could be like, oh, like 1. I'm still thinking about like my to-do list, or 7 because you're thinking about something else. Anxiousness, the emotion of anxiousness.
The car accident, or just right
now? No. Sorry, yourself. Yeah, sorry.
Today, right?
Right now, in this very moment, friends, in this very moment, I want you to actually metacognitively identify your anxiousness. Sorry, I didn't transition very well there. Yeah. Raise the amount of fingers. 0 being it is completely neutral. And 10, it is so debilitating in this very moment, in this time, in this place, in this room. Your anxiousness. And I've chose one of 1,000 emotions, right? And there's more than that. Yeah, what would it be? Because right now I could say it's not at a 0. I need a little bit of anxiousness, maybe a 1 or a 2, in order to do this presentation well. Right? Yeah. Let's choose another emotion. What about sadness? In this very moment, in this time, in this place, what would you rank or rate the strength, that emotional charge of sadness, if it exists in you? For me, I would do this. Yeah. Thank you. So You've ranked it, and that is part of the process, is for the person who's being processed or in that technology to just very much be aware of where they started at. It's not about the accuracy of the number. You just gauge what it is for yourself. Therefore, it is accurate to you. And by the end of this process, what if I were to tell you that your 10, your 4, your 3, whatever it was, can go down to a 1 or 0? If I were a medical doctor and you came in with a pain of 8 out of a scale of 10, and I was able to help you get to a 1 from an 8, you'd be like, oh, I'm seeing this doctor forever. But this is very much possible for you and you alone to do for yourself. I want to empower you, or not empower you. You're already empowered. I want to give you the tools with which to harness your own empowerment to do that today. To take whatever it is that you're feeling and dissolve it down to a 1 or 0 even. Yeah. So what you resist persists. Melissa, you're still there? Or you can still hear us, right?
Yes. No
Cool.
problem.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So there are 3 components to this spiritual technology, right? We're doing the psycho-emotional relief, which is, as I just discussed, dissolving that charge, soothing that pain, even though it's useful, because we know that if we didn't feel pain, we may not feel love. Without grief, we wouldn't feel love. Without one aspect, we wouldn't feel another. But the main other buckets that the spiritual technology for, besides that relief, is the growth, the spiritual growth, the actualization. A lot of self-help methods, and I won't even say self-help. What if you just go to meditation every day, right? And you are a member of the Zendo in Beacon Hill, the Zen monastery. You may get to a lot of these buckets, but it takes some time, right? It's not like one meditation can then totally eliminate that stress that you've been feeling at a scale of 7 or 8, or the sadness, but it does help you to do some of these things better. What this method does very precisely is get you there even in one session, which can range anywhere from 20 minutes, 15 minutes to an hour and a half. Yeah, depending on how deep you want to go. Wait, so Peony, you're saying that the day after or the day of, when you came home and found that this trauma, this awakening had occurred 2 years ago, you're saying you got from here to here to here? Very close. By the end of that week, I was beginning to have like awareness of my greater purpose in life. And I could never fathom that I would ever be in the position to do that so soon after this thing that had happened that I had never expected. But clearly my soul was up for it, right? But it was this that truly allowed for the greatest healing, because the situation didn't matter if I remembered who I really am. And it took the experiencing of it and not the intellectual understanding of it, which is a huge difference. Has anyone in here ever had talk therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, talk therapy, or just like literally ranted to a friend? We've all done it. Yes. Zivorad, or even my mentor teacher, he says that kind of thing is you do feel better after ranting. You do. You let it all out. And there are at least 3 people in this room who have heard me let out lots of things, lots and lots, especially my Ja. But because she lives with me. But in the long term, does it make you truly feel better? It really doesn't. It sometimes the next day even adds to the emotional charge. In that moment, it might alleviate the pain a little bit, but it actually prolongs the suffering, because we're not actually addressing the root of that emotional charge. Yeah, because we're only living in that intellectual space of just, I'm going to just talk about it and tell you about it. But what if I'm not actually even feeling what I'm telling you, and I'm not in my somatics and my body sensations, and I'm not seeing things, and I'm not experiencing it. I'm not allowing that emotional charge to work through me. So what I ask the people that I work with is, am I helping this person with relief? Am I helping them with their development? Am I helping them with their awakening? And somewhere on the spectrum, this modality can meet them, or I can meet them. If you just want this, awesome. You don't need to go here. But a lot of people like myself inadvertently found myself here, and I was just blown away. And words cannot even encapsulate it. Today, you may not experience that as easily if I were to do a one-on-one with you. I'm not trying to pitch myself, but we are going to have some fast relief, I hope, if done properly, because coming together as a group, we naturally can help each other heal a lot faster. There's a phenomenon that happens when people are doing healing together in a room. It's incredible. So we'll see that later. So what does the spiritual technology entail? Okay, I'm going to give you a preview of what it is like. We're going to focus on the thing that is heaviest on your heart today. I'm going to caveat that and say maybe medium heavy. If you want to go heavy, that's fine. My teacher mentor would caution us not to. But since this is the Esophageal Society and everybody here has a spiritual background mostly, this would be very different than if I were working with a bunch of cops in a room. And I have worked with law enforcement in a room, right? You can, for today, the demo at the end, the group healing at the end, you can choose the heaviest thing on your heart if you'd like. But, and by that I mean like something that's like beyond a 7 on a scale of 10, right? But try to choose something medium, right? We have more than one issue going on in our lives. Well, you could choose something that's like a 4, okay, a 5 maybe, all right? So we're going to focus on that. It could be a setback, a barrier to a goal, a problem. Let's say your life is going swimmingly and all is fine. You don't have an active problem. Well, still, are you truly living the life you want then? Like, do you want more money? You want more abundance? That still is a somehow barrier to a goal. Okay, so, yeah, I want more money. Then focus on that. That can be the issue. It doesn't have to be something traumatic or something saddening or something, really, really intense. So we're going to allow that emotion to arise. We're going to start there, and then we're going to verbalize all 4 of these elements of awareness. And the first one is thought. Those are just words that come to mind. The second one is imagery, things you see, perhaps clairvoyantly, because sometimes you can see stuff with your eyes open that is not there. And of course, you can see things very easily in third eye or in the mind's eye, however you want to call it, when you close your eyes. And this method usually works very well when people close their eyes, but you don't have to, but I recommend. And then last but not least, there's body sensations. Oh, Peony, I feel a tingliness. You would state it out loud to yourself today. And by out loud, you're probably not going to say it, but just say it silently. And then feel that emotion, whatever it is. Let's say it's grief. I'm going to ask you to feel it, magnify it, intensify it, vivify it as much as you can. Now, how do you do that? How does an actor make themselves cry? They have to think cryy thoughts. You do then have to conjure up everything you need to magnify that emotion, right? Vivify it, intensify it, put all your attention on it. And that, though, is the way that we can dissolve that eventual emotional charge. So yeah, you might think of images or thoughts in order to conjure up those emotions. They're all interrelated. But the entire technology is all about making what's inside you, even if you thought it to yourself. To say it out loud, apparently, is a whole nother step of making the unconscious conscious. That together with that full feeling of that emotion or that body sensation, boom, you've got the spiritual technology there. It is that simple. It is that simple. Once that full consciousness, but once that thing right here, making the unconscious conscious, once it's no longer resisted, it just disappears. It dissolves. It goes somewhere else. Once you give it the microphone, it says, bye-bye, I've said my piece. I've made myself known, and it will dissolve. That is a core spiritual principle. That is a core psycho-emotional principle. That is a core psychological principle. Any questions, wonderings, comments, anecdotes, thoughts, wisdoms? Anything anyone else want to share? Because I do not know it all.
I'm wondering,
Yeah.
when we do this later.
Yeah.
Are we doing it with ourselves? Are we verbalizing to the whole group? Like,
We are not going to make known what's inside of us, but you would pretend to be saying it out loud, but like that, like we just say it silently. Yeah, but pretend. Yeah, because we want to keep your experience private. But at the same time, it's called co-healing. This works so well, and I've seen it work so well. And I've been in groups doing this work somehow so much better when we're in a group setting. Because when everybody is doing the self-actualizing, the emotional charge dissolving, all of it, the spiritual technology works really well because we're in coherence with one another in proximity, literally in person. Does it still work if we're all in Zoom right now? Yeah, energy is energy. Yeah, but somehow when you're not doing it alone, although your problem will be unique to you, your setback will be unique to you. Obviously, you are not processing her problem, she's not, so on and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah. You ensure that you're feeling emotion without resisting it. Like, is there some kind of method that you can use to make sure that you're not resisting?
That is the harder part, isn't it? If your coach or the person tells you, now feel that sadness. I mean, you just do your best. You have to think the things that make you feel that sadness, right? Because you already identified at the beginning of the session, let's say you told me that your sadness was a 5 or something like that. Well, something in you knows that it's a 5 and not a 0. Therefore, beat the drum of that 5. Oh, when da 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 said this, when da 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 happened, when da 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 da. Ah, feel the sadness. Yeah. Oh, now I feel a tear coming out.
Do you mean do you mean when you're being asked to feel it, or do you mean like originally how you not resist it?
Like
Yeah.
being asked.
When being asked, how do you not resist it?
Yeah.
Mm.
How do they control your brain to like not resist feeling that emotion?
I mean, I would add to what she's saying. Like, I think if you can notice where you're resisting, you can also kind of let go. Like a lot of times I'll feel like a clench on my stomach or a clench in my heart or something like that. And then I can kind of like, oh, look, I noticed that, and like relax it a little. And that helps reduce resistance as well. I don't know if you've ever been able to feel that. But like if you, like if you're feeling like, I mean, I feel like I'm kind of saying to myself, I don't want to do this, or I don't like, or part of my body is like, oh, yeah. Anyway, sorry, I finished.
No, and Manja, that's a great question because I haven't formally done it with you all yet. But one of the things I will end up saying at the beginning to frame it for you, pre-frame it for you, is don't overanalyze anything. Don't evaluate anything. Don't analyze anything. Let the thoughts float up. Let the imagery float up into your consciousness. Let whatever it is, the tightness in your chest float up. Let it just be made aware and tell me if it does. And I will prompt you. Are there any thoughts, any bodies? I will prompt you, and you just have to say it. So whatever it is that's arising in your consciousness or awareness, saying it is you not resisting it because you are literally following the direction of tell me, right? Tell me da 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 da. Tell me da 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 da.
Yeah, it's like surrendering control and not thinking about it.
Yeah.
Just like shut down your brain.
But it's interesting because thoughts are part of this process. So how can we ever really shut down our brain? Well, it depends. Your relationship to your problem is unique. Your problem might lie more in the somatic, the body sensations or the imagery, more than it is the thought. But because you're only trying to be in the thought, the problem never gets fully felt or experienced or realized. And so if it is even inadvertently resisted, it will persist. Inadvertently, you're not even trying to actually resist it. You just didn't know it was all in my body, this trauma, or this situation was all in my body, or mostly in the body. Yeah, good questions. How do you resist? One of the meta things about this is control and surrender, resistance and surrender or acceptance. You notice I'm bringing up opposites, right? Resistance, acceptance, right? Control, surrender. These are the things that we would start off with as one of my prime polarities to come together, because it's the meta part of, again, the problem is not peony's problem. It's my relationship to the problem. It's this resistance that has come up and not the issue itself. That's the problem. So there's no analysis needed, which is the cool thing about this. Therefore, it's not traditional therapy. We don't need to dive into your childhood and the way your relationship with your mom is and your father's relationship with you and nothing like that. because it's like an onion layer, we do not ever need to even dissect that original decision or belief, which is really cool. We don't need to know, oh shit, for me, yeah, I mean, when I stood out as a kid, I was only ever humiliated. And so from then on, I subconsciously never allowed myself to truly stand out. I always kept everyone at arm's length, or I see, so on and so forth. We don't even need to know that. But by the end of the process, the insight will come. You will have that clarity, and it'll come from you, not the person who's processing you, like me. Because again, I cannot and will not evaluate or make a judgment or some kind of conclusion, right? I'm not licensed to do that. Over time, because it's an onion layer, all of these things get stacked. And the reason why going into analysis mode doesn't work is because you're trying to reach for the root underneath so many layers of branches. You're not getting to the root right away. You're just fumbling with all the branches. And there's nothing wrong with that. By fumbling with the branches, you eventually get to the root, but it just takes so long. And part of the reason why this, I think, is New Earth technology, if you know what New Earth is, right? The dawning of the new age. And we're already in it. We're shifting, which is why all this shit is happening, to make us shift or be conscious of that shift. In New Earth, we don't have time, especially people who don't have the socioeconomic means to go see a therapist weekly. Like, what? Most people have no access to the Victorians sitting on a couch and just lying there and telling them all your problems, which was where psychotherapy began, right? With wealthy people who had the means to do that. We don't have time to dissect. We've got to get to functioning right away or as soon as possible. Yeah. So what about the other element of conquering? Hey, Robert, have you gotten over your fear yet? This is like such a common thing to say, and I say it to myself. Just get over it, Cheryl or Peony. What we're doing by getting over it, a lot of the times, maybe not all the time, is I'm just gonna like pummel over it and beat it. I have enough willpower to beat it. There's no conquering needed in this. In fact, trying to conquer it actually is more resistance. Okay? So it grows the problem rather than resist it. You're just adding to the pile of content. And by the way, whenever I say content, the content of a book, the content of a novel, content is thoughts, emotions, body sensations, and imagery. That's content. Stuff. Just stuff. That's part of your human awareness. All right. So now we get to the relationship to spirituality. And again, if you have anything you want to say or interrupt with, please do. Okay. How many of you in here practice some kind of meditation? Yeah. Yoga? Yeah. Zen practices, Vipassana, so on and so forth. Yeah. Thank you. Zivorad saw that there was no conflict with these things that we just mentioned and the spiritual technology, right? There's no conflict. It's complementary. It's complementary. Zen, yoga, Vipassana, so on and so forth, everything like that builds awareness. It builds your capacity to witness, to observe. As you watch the stuff, and by stuff, the content, thoughts, emotions, body sensations, and imagery arise, right? Over time, with enough spiritual practice, meditation, let's say, you realize that you are not that stuff. You just begin to realize it over time, okay? And then intellectually, you understand it, or maybe you understood it intellectually first, and then you truly felt it. But the con and not the pro of these methods is that it just is more slow. That's all. It's very non-specific, right? You're not surgically dissolving a specific knot. This method is the surgical dissolving of a specific knot, right? This technology, we're going to shine a spotlight on that thing instead of a floodlight. Okay, one more time, the spotlight instead of a floodlight. We're going to target that specific trigger and we're going to rapidly dissolve it through its layers of charges, the onion layers. And therefore, that is what makes it very fast and effective for specific issues. So use meditation to continue to witness, right? Grow your witnessing capacity, because that's part of this enlightenment thing, right? Notice what kind of stuff keeps showing up, what identities keep showing up, what polarities keep showing up. Those are the dualities I'll mention later, right? Allow yourself to feed into the experience of that. And so we're gonna dissolve big chunks of charge today, hopefully, right? And every single time you dissolve the big chunk of charge, you do feel better, but the spiritual aspect is you are removing one more layer of ego. Now, if someone in the future accuses me of pretty horrible things, just like what happened in both my two awakenings, will I be a Zen Buddha and have no reaction? Hell no. I will still be affected, but my recovery rate will be that much quicker. Yeah, because of this work. Yeah, I'll still be human. I'll never get rid of, core layers of well, maybe not never. I'll just greatly reduce those core layers of ego tied to those dualities within me. And I will be able to recover from that a lot faster, sooner than ever before. So that feedback loop, more awareness, better processing, clearer awareness, more awareness, so on and so forth. It's just a continual loop, and it's a good loop to be in. So let's talk about that loop real quick. Whenever you are in a loop, and you know when you're in a loop, or at least you meditate or are aware or witnessing enough, you know when you're just, what did my friend call it? Twitter pating, she said. I didn't know about that word until recently. Twitter pating, pontificating, ruminating, all synonyms. But Twitter pating, damn, I did a lot of Twitter pating over, certain people. And it just has this pendulum oppositional, effect. Like it just goes around and around. We keep attracting what we don't want, and so on and so forth. And so this whole technology stops that loop. It stops that. Actually, it doesn't stop. It keeps that energy in motion so that it leaves you rather than getting stuck in you, right? Which it took me a second just now to realize, right? If emotion is energy in motion, and that energy in motion is staying stuck in one place of motion and not leaving you in motion out your body or out your soul or out your psyche or out your heart, mind, and spirit, however we want to call it, then it's technically not in motion. What do we call a person whose blood is not in motion? Yeah, you're like dead. Yeah, you're literally a zombie, right? The living dead, okay? Chi, prana, rauk, which is Hebrew for life force, right? Chi is Chinese for life force, right? Prana is Hindi for life force. When your life force, hi, come on in. When your life force is not moving, you are not spiritually alive. There's no life in you. That's the definition of chi, right? When your biological elements are not in motion, you literally are dead. So on and so forth. If your heart is not in motion, we could keep going on and on. Lots of ways to look at this. But when we don't have the ability to be in a healthy motion, then we are stuck. And so we repel what we actually want. Simple as that, right? We fixate on the issue. We give it too much importance. Again, remember when I said wild animals don't get PTSD because they're not fixating on anything. They're in the moment. The rabbits that my dog, who's a pit bull, chases every night, damn it if the next day they don't come back out and pretend that that pit bull never got them, or there never existed a wild animal that could eat them. They shook it off, their trauma, and they come back the next day and they're still a rabbit. Yeah. So we repel the very thing that we're longing for because we're in conflict with our reality, with our outcomes. All right, so going towards what we should resist. That picture on the top right is a photocopy picture, right? It's super blurry. It's what comes out of a Xerox machine. Let's say that you're feeling whatever it is you're feeling today, and I want you to very quickly name it. Can you name it? In fact, let's go to, oh, do I have it? Perfect. Let's go to here. What is the heaviest emotion, if you want to share, you don't have to, that you are feeling today in general? Maybe not in this moment, maybe in this moment. Conjure up the thing that is most pressing on your heart, or maybe not the one that's super high, but like medium. Okay. Is it sadness? Is it grief? Is it anger? Is it resentment? Is it frustration? Is it annoyance? Is it any of those things that are probably less desired? Or it could be very desired. Maybe you're feeling very, very thankful. Natasha, tell me the main heavier emotion that you feel in relation to a specific issue. Sentimental. Yeah. Robert? You could go to a core emotion. What would it fall under in the very center of the circle? Gurpreet? Grief. Yeah. Lori? Anxiety/fear. Yeah, fear is the bigger root. Yeah, Emily?
Grief.
Yeah.
Sadness. I think
Sadness.
Grief.
Grief. Yeah, yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go back to this. And Melissa, if you wanted to share yours, that'd be fine too. AI.
All of them just like that.
Oh, hold on. Did you say something, Melissa? Because we could not hear you for a second.
I would just
Oh, there you are. Yeah, go ahead.
and we have Erica here in the chat too.
Oh, yes, Erica. Welcome, welcome. Yeah,
You've been
Melissa or
putting
Erica,
messages in the
what's
chat.
your... Oh, I'm sorry, we're not looking at the chat box. Can you read that for us? What is
Yes.
the core emotion?
I put in inadequate.
Yeah, inadequate. Thank you. And Melissa?
Annoyed that I'm annoyed.
Ooh, very meta, which is exactly very useful because we're going to do that top layer of annoyance and then the bottom layer, the original annoyance, right? Every single thing that you all mentioned, grief, annoyance, sentimentality, anxiety, fear, grief again, our natural impulse is to avoid what hurts. And so that photocopy there, if I were to photocopy this page right here that has some writing, and I grab the end output, that photocopied paper, and I photocopy that paper. Then I grab the output of that and photocopy that, and then I do it, let's say 500 times. Would the end result have anything on it, or would it be very like faint, indiscernible? That's what we're doing. We're going to continue to duplicate that. Okay. Today, if I tell you a really funny joke, because I'm obviously super funny, and you laugh your butt off, and then tomorrow I tell you the same thing, or maybe even a different funny joke, but you laugh your butt off again, and then the next, and by day 10, you're probably not laughing your ass off that much. You'd probably be like, shut the hell up, especially if it's the same joke. The emotional charge of that joke has dissipated because it's been duplicated. That's a silly example, but it stands nonetheless. The very first time you saw your favorite musician or band in concert and you heard your favorite song being played, and then you later got on your stereo and played it again, and then a year later you played it on your stereo, nothing will ever be like that first experience of feeling it played live because the emotional charge has dissipated. It will never be as powerful as the first time. Luckily, we can apply it to this principle. Whatever it is you're feeling, even annoyance on top of annoyance, grief, sentimentality. And I'm not saying that any emotions, which we'll go over later, are bad or good. But whatever you avoid, right, we want to gently go towards it. What we resist persists. As long as we duplicate it, just like the copy machine, it will get fainter.
So I think does
Yeah.
does this also apply to like happy emotions? If you keep repeating it, it's
Yeah. Can you say blissful forever? I mean, if you keep taking drugs, even the brain is like, I'm tired. I can't be on dopamine all the
I
time.
don't know for they're like great meditators, they're in bliss all the time.
No,
No.
no.
No, they're
You'll
in
find out.
neutrality.
You'll find out. I have an exact slide to answer that question, actually.
I
Yeah.
thought that's the case, but if they are truly enlightened,
No, no.
so what? do you
True
want?
enlightenment is the integration of you meeting reality in the moment, but I'll explain more later. Yeah, according to Zivorad and according to what I've learned. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. True enlightenment is not being blissed out all the time, per this guy's, at least this guy's definition. But I believe it too, because it again, nothing, impermanence is a key spiritual principle.
I think I had a misunderstanding.
Yeah, yeah. You thought enlightenment was the penultimate, ultimate achievement that one can, aspire to in this earth body,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, yeah. Which, what if we can walk towards it but never reach it? What if that's the goal, is just to walk towards it but never reach it, or reach it in moments but not permanently?
Yeah, that can make sense.
Yeah, yeah. Because what would happen if we were happy all the time?
I thought that
we would look
meditators.
at opportunities for growth and to continue to learn.
Then we wouldn't. That's the point. If we just stayed happy. There's a TV show now out from the creators of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul.
Okay, I
Called
think
Pluribus,
that
everyone
my
is.
perspective is the bodies that we're currently in were meant to experience effort and to continue to have process in the bodies that we're currently. That makes any sense. So you're here to learn and experience. So you would never stay and enjoy it because that's not the point of being in this body.
So for beings without the body, they're always in like total bliss.
I personally believe that there are beings that could be in total bliss, but the intent of having the body that you currently have on this planet is to learn and grow, and to learn and grow through effort. And the effort we're doing is through things that are challenging, and we go get in and out of happiness. If we went back to that state, you wouldn't need to be here in this planet, in this body. To be pure joy all the time, that's not why you're here. You're here to learn in a way of dealing with challenge, things that are hard. I'm sharing. Okay.
Well, the premise we started with was if
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
happiness exists and no other emotion, would we still be going towards growth? And I think we disagree, or I disagree. That's why we're going to bring up dualities and contrasts later and why that exists. And I know it doesn't matter, Natasha is on the same page there, but yeah, I think we're exploring it. Yeah, in this body, we are, wanting growth. Yeah.
I'm sorry. This
Examples of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul.
Oh, sorry. So there's a TV show now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So people online can hear you, otherwise they can't hear. There's a TV show out now by the creators of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul called Pluribus.
Don't spoiler. There's
no spoiler. There's no spoiler.
Okay.
Where basically everyone, this is already in the show notes for episode 0. Everyone is in one state of being, which is happiness. And so you'll watch the show and figure out, is this good? Is this bad? Is there good? Is there bad? Like, what happens when everybody experiences the same thing? Yeah, that's all. Yeah, it's just a really fun exploration, right? Yeah. But if we have a natural impulse, as we should, being in the body, to run away, to leave reality, to tell stories, to go into denial, all this does is to train you gently to go back to leaning into that instead, right? When we do that skillfully, that's when that emotional charge melts layer by layer. Yeah. But
What is unskillful? Like surrounding you in depression?
going into extremism, yeah, and the loop, the emotional loop. Yeah, yeah. But every emotion is here to serve us. We will talk about that. Dissolving it provides relief, but the client's not going to come to me and say, I want to dissolve my happiness. Every emotion will serve its purpose. But if that grief, if that sadness, if that anxiety is keeping you from functioning at the level you want to function in, then yes, let's dissolve it. But let's still harness the purpose of why it came to be in the first place. Because there is a reason why it lived in you. There's a reason why that energy is in you. It is actually here to serve you because it is a part of you. Whatever is a part of you is naturally here to serve you. That's another core principle of this work, which is radical, because it's like, why the fuck would this grief serve me? How is this making anything better? Yeah, because our soul wants that experience to then transcend to the other side of it. Yeah. And it doesn't even have to be transcend, even has a connotation that, well, so happiness and joy is good, but then grief is bad. There is no good or bad. What if there is no bad emotion? That whole circle of emotions I showed you, there is not a single bad emotion. And maybe there's not a single good emotion, if I could say there's a single bad emotion. What if they're just all different things and frequencies on a spectrum? And I'll show you that later. In this book, Letting Go by Dr. David Hawkins, he wrote a book that mapped out the frequencies of emotions, literal frequencies, like the electromagnetic waves of joy versus grief. Yeah.
So that's kind of part of what this is about.
Yeah, because I'm going to show you what that looks like as the charge dissolves, what you're going to go towards, right? Theoretically, when you are in, I'll go there. I'll get there. Yeah, I'll get there. Yeah, there's a few more things. And if everybody's still okay on time, we've got 12 minutes left, actually. So I've taken a little bit too much time doing the lecturing, I think.
Are we gonna practice doing it?
Yeah, that was the point of the last half hour, but I took 15 minutes too long with my slides. Yeah.
There's such as another.
Yes. So
Or we could just jump to it.
yeah, we could jump to it. Yeah, there's some parts here that I want you to know about before we do the demo. But let me just really quickly glaze over this. Okay. When you put your attention on something that triggered or triggers you, it's a person, a belief, a memory. When you actually put your attention on it, that thing no longer need be hijacked. It's still going to be a part of your story, but it's no longer a part of your identity because you're able to witness it separately. You're not fused with it anymore. And that, according to Zivorad, is true integration. Notice earlier when I said, hey, did you get over your fear already, Robert? Getting over is doing this, but integrating that fear is this.
Yeah, it sounded weird when you said that. That's not how you want to phrase it, is it?
Exactly, exactly. Intentionally not. Yeah, definitely not. Have you integrated your fear is literally what we're trying to do here instead of getting over stuff. We don't want to get over stuff. We want to integrate whatever it is that you all have brought up today so that, and this is the easy example, okay? The car alarm goes off when the burglar tries to, steal the car. Do you want the car alarm to go off when the acorn hits the window because it fell off a tree at 3 a.m., right? But they're both car alarms, should they not? So no, very vastly different functions, vastly different contexts. That fear, that grief, so on and so forth, everything that you have mentioned. Right now, it's more like that car alarm going off with the acorn hitting the tree. Right now, it's a little bit bothersome and it's not quite serving you to the best of your capacity in this life. But if you never felt anger, if nobody in this world ever felt anger, would the world be a better place? Yes or no? A lot of people actually immediately say, well, yeah, there'd be no murder, there'd be no this, there'd be no that. But why would you say no?
Investigate a story of an Argentine woman whose daughter.
I read something on Facebook yesterday about an Argentine woman whose daughter disappeared into sex trafficking, and she then became the leader in that country she made it an issue, whereas it wasn't an issue in that country before.
Yeah. So without anger, there wouldn't be justice,
right?
Perhaps, or the proper activism, right? Social justice, anything that would right a wrong, right? Atonement of any kind. If there were no anger in the world, there wouldn't be the biggest catalyst for change in people, within yourself or in others. We need anger. Can other emotions be a catalyst for change? Absolutely. Absolutely. But anger is the most, not only the most kinetic emotion, you know what I'm talking about, movement, right? The most energy filled, the most volatile in that way, but not in a bad volatility if there's no bad emotions, right? It's just very, very kinetic and present. If we didn't have anger in the world, we wouldn't have change in people, believe it or not. And yes, we wouldn't have things like, I don't know, the civil rights movement. If Dr. Martin Luther King never got angry, what would we have right now? Just segregated schools, maybe, right? But yeah, what you do with the anger, go and stab someone, absolutely bad. But the anger itself is not bad. What about loss or grief or sadness? Which, by the way, grief is a combo of anger and sadness. Grief is a combo of anger, sadness. You can look at all kinds of charts where it'll tell you what are combos of different emotions. Can anyone else tell me a combo of an emotion that produces something else, right? Sadness and mad, grief. SMAD, I call it. And by the way, whenever sadness comes up for a client that I work with, usually almost always anger will also then come up after that as another layer, even if unconscious. Okay, if somebody has anger, they usually also have sadness. It comes in that nice pair often. Yeah, you're like, yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
Very different from what comes to my mind, which is like the polarities, but when you're on a big spectrum of how, like, 100% pure love and 100% hate, it's very close to each other. There's a lot of commonality.
Yep, exactly.
It's
That's the
just-
final thing before we process. Yeah, that's the final thing. They're actually one and the same.
Like,
We just have a different direction, different,
output.
Depending on how you harness it. Yeah. At the highest level, and you'll see later, you know, the two are the same. And that's hard to grasp. How can they? They have such different outputs. But on an, again, internal and perhaps energetic level, they are one and the same. And as soon as you can reconcile that on an experiential level, that is when you reach this state. Not quite here yet. Here you're still like saying, you know, I am this, right? I am this trauma. Okay, so you're really identifying with it. Okay, I am this anxiousness. And then right here you get to, okay, I'm now beyond this identity, but I'm going to keep the wisdom. I understand why I went through that or experienced it. And now it informs my life. Like Natasha said, wisely, I know that that happened for me. Now you've transcended from that differentiation and you can now like bless the circumstance or situation that happened. Yeah. But going back to emotions, true integration is the freedom and the de-identification from that thing that was troubling you, the furniture that we needed to remove from the room. Yeah. Yeah. Integration. Yeah.
De-identification.
Is de-identification and freedom. The two components. Yeah. Release from it, pure freedom from it. Now, earlier, remember I told you, like, hey, if I were to get accused like that again on such a grand level, would I suffer like I did the first two times? I said probably, but I'm telling you, because I've done such intense work, yeah, you're like, she's going to be fine. I can now move on to other things that would trigger me instead of that particular trigger, which is the accusation of myself, which is rooted in shame, because as a kid, that was the projection that my father had, right? He made me responsible for his feelings. And so it was just his shame then became my shame. But if I've worked on it, and if the technology works, then theoretically, no matter what you accuse me of, I will no longer be affected. And one day by the third, fourth, fifth time, it'll just be like, you know, in one ear, out the other kind of thing. I should no longer be impacted by it. And how do you define that impact? Well, I mean, if you're at all expressing any physiological response, You know, did you cry? Did you tear up? Did you like suddenly go into dysregulation? Did you then feel anxious? There should be a more, well, neutral response to it if you've really integrated that. But it's not about being perfect. Don't count the instances, count the absences or something like that, my teacher said. Count the amount of times you can bounce back from it. That's what matters, not the amount of times that it happens. Okay. Are you all okay staying another 5 minutes? Okay.
I see all these awesome slides. Yeah.
And you can thank AI for giving me some of the imagery because I just asked it to create some photos, right? So I told you about those 4 elements of awareness: thoughts, emotions, body sensations, and imagery. The other day, a client said, well, what about sound? What about like what I hear? Where do you think that falls under eventually, once you hear the sound though? Yeah, body sensation. Literally, it is a vibration in your eardrum, isn't it? Sound. Okay. You could see it as something. You could feel it as something. You could feel that sound as something. You could think something about that sound. So eventually, everything still falls into these categories. And I even asked my teacher, well, I need to ask him again, why is it that imagery can't also fall into thoughts and emotions? Well, theoretically, these two are the core of it. Because even when you feel a body sensation, okay, right now I feel a tingle in my hands. Peony, what does that represent to you? It's just this anxiety. See, and so now I've ascribed an emotion to that tingle, right? Or it could just be the tingle and I have no awareness of what it means. That could also be true. So that's why it's in a separate category. But in imagery, I mean, if I'm seeing like, you know, Jesus in front of me and I feel such love, then yeah, it would fall in the emotion. Well, what does this thing you see symbolize to you? You know, oh, I see a white rose, you know, I see a white bird. What does that mean to you? I'll ask the client, right? Just to get back to the core thought or the core emotion. Those are the 2 bigger elements of the 4, or the more primary ones.
Sound. Tree.
Yeah, exactly. People literally hear sound as visuals. What's that condition called where you,
Oh,
there's a word for it.
synesthesia.
Yeah.
Taking sounds as their like landscape.
Yeah. And the reason why other modalities, again, this is never to put traditional therapy throw under the bus, but the reason why other work, even when you go to like a retreat, which Natasha's going to go to soon, when you attend a seminar, when you read this book, why do those breakthroughs seem to, you know, often, not all the time, fade a little bit? It's because those systems usually only work with one of the 4 things. Thought, let's just say, if I'm just going to read this book, it's just all thought. I'm not experiencing anything in this book. I mean, I can, you know, sit there and experience it, but there's only so much, right? When we work in only one channel, we have an incomplete integration. But when we work with all 4 of them, then so much charge shifts, right? Less chunks linger. And so when we engage all 4 of these elements, the change is so much deeper and so much more stable. Because I'll test you at the end, you know, asking you that question, or in a one-on-one session, like, you know, if this were to happen again, what would be your response? Yeah. Okay. So there are no negative emotions, right? We'd had 50 years worth of society and modern psychology inadvertently telling us, okay, so these are the positive emotions and these are the negative emotions. We've even inadvertently taught children all of that. We were taught ourselves. I mean, we were all told, don't cry at some point, probably, right? Or don't be angry, or, oh, there's no need to cry. But there's so much that's not integrated because of that. And that car alarm metaphor, right? You want it to go off when someone is stealing the car. You don't want it to go off when an acorn hits the car. When do you want your fear to go off? Maybe when you are literally falling off that safari Jeep in Kenya, which I almost did, right? And there's like a lion right there. There's no barriers. It's just you're in the wild. Would we want my fear to be activated then? Hell yeah. When I'm in front of an entire group of public records professionals the other day at the Linwood Convention Center, and there's 450 of them, do we want fear to be at center stage? Maybe not. Yeah. So it just depends. What is the context? What is the moment? What ratio do I step into fear versus whatever is the opposite of fear for me? It might be sovereignty, it might be love, right? Control versus surrender. So you meet the moment, you use that energy, then you gently set it back down and return to your preferred state. That is what this modality teaches you or rewires you to do, right? So it's very different than disassociating from it or pushing it away. Okay, and that Hawkins scale that I mentioned, right? If you were to look at the middle row or middle column, excuse me, the middle column where it says emotions, okay, notice at the very bottom, it's not even depression, according to Dr. Hawkins, it's humiliation.
Sorry,
Right there. Humiliation. Look at the very top, ineffable. Literally a word to encompass no words. Ineffable, right? Yeah, sorry, this is the biggest that I can make it.
It's a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, so level, name, view of life, and right in the middle column, we have the emotion column, right? Okay, so Peony, what are the other columns? What about the level names? He named the level of spiritual development. Notice at the very top, it says enlightenment. Munja brought that up, enlightenment, top left, you see that? Okay, now go to the emotion. Oh, ineffability. It's not even an emotion, it's just ineffable. It's an isness. I have felt that with this process or this modality.
What is it, emotion?
No, it's not technically an emotion, but it's ineffable. You can't, it's like beyond isness. It's like an emptiness or nothingness. That's as close as I can describe it, right? Where you are the I am. Not even I am sadness. No, I am. It's just I am, right? Okay. Now look at the very top right, if I can move this for a second here. Okay. Look at the process, the very right column, right? The process. Pure consciousness is the process taking place, right? You go down, oh, there's illumination, transfiguration, go all the way down to the bottom right, elimination as well. Yeah, sorry, the top was transfiguration. And what was that? Illumination. Yeah, not illumination. Sorry, two different words. So you see the numbers on the left, right? Those are some frequencies that Dr. Hawkins figured out. But I want to remind you of why I'm showing this to you, okay? At the bottom in the red zone, you have all the stuff we do not want to experience, but we do experience. It's called being human. Apathy, shame, guilt. In the middle layer, we have more anger, pride, courage, right? Neutrality. And at the top layer, we have love, joy, peace, self-realization. Anyone who knows a lick of psychology, Carl Jung, we are all here to self-actualize, per Natasha's paraphrasing of we are all here to grow and learn. That's self-actualization, right? When I'm working with whoever I'm working with, I will listen in to where they're at on the scale. When anger or frustration shows up, I know we're actually going north. It's not a bad thing, right? As we integrate, we naturally climb. And Manjat's point, but can we stay that way 24/7? No. But can we make our baseline higher? Yes. More or less. I don't think anyone can stay in the purple zone all the time. But if I've done enough work, even after a fight, after a conflict, after an accident, after a trauma, even though I've gone here, boom, I can come back up to my regular baseline faster. And I can move that baseline up a little bit slowly over time. Most people's baseline, right, somewhere in the middle, but most people's baseline is actually more like in the orange zone. I mean, maybe I should use the word many people. We're a very cynical society. We're a very easily triggered society. I mean, you compare Americans to Finland people or Finnish people or Swedish people or Norwegian people, right? The index, or Nepalese people, or what's the country with the highest happiness index? Nepal, the Himalayas.
Tibet?
Tibet, yes, Tibetan. Yeah. You compare Americans, not to put us down, but to Tibetans, and they've done rankings and tests or surveys on the happiness scale, right? Consistently, Tibetan people or Nepalese people or people in Northern European countries are way higher. They're usually their baseline. I'm not saying usually as in, if they're in a car accident, they're not going to be in the green zone, obviously, but their baseline is mostly in that yellowish green zone. Whereas for Americans, it's like yellow to orange zone. You know what I mean? Not saying they're better than us, but perhaps they have found a way to integrate more of their emotions, because guess what? In Finland, starting in kindergarten or preschool, they teach kids how to actually express and label their emotions. It's embedded in the curriculum. So their socio-emotional curriculum started from decades ago, whereas we just started it in this last like 10 years. Yeah, I went into teaching in Washington State in 2013. So that's 12 years ago now. SEL, socio-emotional curriculum, was just beginning, really. Yeah. So Finnish kids, I feel angry. Not, you made me angry, which is what we're taught here. I just feel this, and it doesn't need to have a blame component to it. I just really feel this. Yeah. So the emotional journey tends to follow a natural upward trajectory. We start in fear or shame or grief, and as the process moves, we go into anger or pride. All these other layers come up: courage, neutrality, and we can just end that neutrality sometimes, or there might be an extra component if I intuitively feel like I want to take you or you want to be taken to, that blissful state. But bliss is not the end goal. Oh, it's one goal, but it's not the goal. The goal can be, I just want to feel accepting of the situation that's going on. I don't want to be happy about it. I just want to accept it. That's neutral, just acceptance. You don't need to be blissed out about, a parent dying. No way. But what if I can just accept it? So therefore, maybe that's that version of enlightenment, meeting the reality in the moment.
See apathy on the list.
Yeah.
Where's
Empathy.
It's not an emotion.
Empathy is more probably the dark, the ocean, navy blue, the love. Maybe it would be closer to there.
Or
Yeah.
understanding.
Or understanding. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Yeah.
Empathy is literally feeling somebody else's emotions. So
Empathy is a combo of some emotions. Yeah.
Well, I would argue it's not at all an emotion.
Right.
If you're feeling anger,
Yeah.
I feel empathetic to your anger. If you feel grief, I'm empathetic to your grief. It's you being able to tap into somebody else's emotion.
Yeah, and part of what this modality has made me be more aware of is what is truly an emotion versus what isn't. Yeah, and we could talk about that more in part 2. Yeah.
Cheryl, if somebody like identifies with something that's like higher up on this scale, like purple, like just like the top like 5 colors, whatever. If you like identify with like peace, for example, does that incorporate the lower ones like joy, love, reason, acceptance? Because like I don't know, I guess I'm trying to like see how to read this in a way that's like aspirational, like what I would want to aspire to. And I think like, oh, joy, love, reason, these are all great things. I don't even know how to rank them. I mean, they're kind of ranked here, I guess, but if you aspire to like exist on this like plane of like the peace plane, for example, or the enlightenment plane, for example, does it incorporate all the lower ones, or I don't know?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Erica. The goal isn't okay, so yes, the goal is, and we said this earlier, to continually walk towards, let's call it perfection, right? But you're never going to reach it, kind of thing, but you're walking towards it at least, right? Even in our Constitution, it says to form a more perfect union. It doesn't say to form a perfect union. So we can still try to go towards it at least. Doesn't mean we should stop trying. But Erica, just because in this moment or in that day or in that week, you might be like in the purplish, bluish area, it doesn't mean you've integrated all the bottom stuff necessarily. The only way to really know integration, per my experience, is to know how quickly, so to speak, you bounce back from that original trigger, or how much that original trigger still affects you. That original trigger, let's say one day some shit happens and it's like super fear and grief and, you know, all the lower, the orangey areas, right? Well, then does that negate that you were able to feel like the purple areas? No, no. And does it mean you've gone down and you somehow deprogressed and you're like, you know, not growing, and instead of like becoming smaller or less than? No, no, no. There's no, it's not an evaluation on your own growth and actualization. Your actualization or integration, though, can be evaluated by, okay, when that thing that causes that shame suddenly appears, how quickly can you then go back up to your regular baseline? So if your regular baseline was generally in the, let's say, the dark blue zone, how quickly can you go back to it? That would tell me personally how well you've actualized or self-actualized. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I mean, it answers a slightly different question than I was trying to ask, but I was trying to figure out how to reword my question, and I decided to just kind of ignore it for now. I'll ask you later. Thank you.
Hey, Erica, it's Emily. You should read this book, It's Power versus Force. Is where he first wrote about this. He also has a book called The Map of Consciousness that talks specifically about it.
Oh, and this one.
You would like it.
Yeah.
You would really appreciate it. It's like,
Great.
so the numbers on the left, he used muscle testing to like essentially prove the vibration of each of these. And that's where this came from. So this is like a scientific way of sorting out the, you know, these different emotions. Anyway, but Erica, you would like it.
That makes me think of even more questions. So I will be sure to check it out. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe if I were to go here, we could begin to answer that a little bit, maybe. Or you can just like text me and ask me later. Another core principle besides the whole emotional charge dissolving aspect, which we've gone over plenty of times, right? The other main core principle here, and it's even bigger than dissolving emotional charges, because dissolving emotional charges still doesn't get at pulling out that root or taking that furniture out of the room. The core way to fix or heal the issue is to merge your polarities. So Zivorad noted that all mysticism, all spiritual teaching, all, you know, universe teachings, core principles, there is bipolarism or dualities, right? Opposites. The law of opposites is a thing, just like law of attraction is a thing, right? And it's not opposites in a clinical sense, right? But in polarity, where you have hot versus cold, you have fear versus courage, you have stuck versus free. Every single one of these things here, you know, and some of which I've mentioned, right? Control versus surrender, right? Piece of shit versus sovereign is not on here, but that was the identity that naturally came out of me. And I needed to process as piece of shit me, right? As well as sovereign me. Accepting versus rejecting, right? These are some core things where when we work on integrating those opposites and merging them, making them become one experientially, right? To experience that oneness of the two. We start with, then what's the problem? And today you all mentioned the core emotion, which you could tie to one of these words up here, right? You said grief, you said sentimentality. What is that identity that you might be tied to with that emotion that's bothersome right now? Okay, you're going to naturally come up with it in the process. And then I'm going to ask you, well, what do you want to feel instead, Lori, Munja, Emily? That's going to be the opposite, most likely. I feel so bothered because like my brother currently doesn't want to be close to me, which is a true thing. Okay. Very much a loss in the opposites. What do you want to feel instead? My mentor teacher asked. I just want to feel love. I know we love each other, but damn, it's hard when he doesn't even want to talk to me. Okay, so love and loss is on here. Does it have to be literal opposites? No. Like, I mean, satisfaction, dissatisfaction, those are literal opposites, but some of these aren't literal. It just depends on what your psyche is grabbing onto in that moment. Okay. Love versus freedom, love versus pain, love versus loss, huge themes. Love versus lots of things, it's a huge theme, right? And then what else? Freedom versus a lot of things, right? Freedom versus non-freedom, top right corner, freedom versus slavery, freedom versus responsibility, Okay. But with your situation right now, can you identify, just even intellectually, I'm not even asking you to experience it, but in the process, we will. What is the polarity that's coming up? And the more you process in this technology, the more you begin to find out, like for me, holy shit, this polarity keeps coming up. It's tied to all these different things. It's the same polarity, even though there are different circumstances. Ah, that must be a prime polarity, which means it's a core dharma, you can call it, a core wound, a core thing that your soul decided to come into this lifetime to work through. For me, it's a lot with control versus surrender, love versus loss. Piece of shitness versus sovereignty, right? Piece of shitness versus divineness, divinity. That's come up too. And here is a way to figure that out real quick, what that identity is tied to the polarity, right? Ask yourself, who is this person experiencing this grief right now? What would you call her, him, they? This person experiencing the grief. When I really feel that grief, I'm not going to say, oh, it's a grieving person. Funny enough, it's always a different word. Step into that identity. It's a shamed peony. A shamed peony feels this grief. Does that make sense? There's an identity then that's tied to the polarity, but that's a lesson for another day. Sorry, guys, I'm way over time.
Quarter to two.
Yeah, we took up nearly 2 hours. Yeah. This is the last bit here, and I'll go into it. You see the flowers, the bee, and the bee is the flower. When you realize on that spiritual experiential level, and you don't even need to be a spiritual practitioner to be taken to that level, which is really cool because I've seen like cops go through this process, and they never were religious, never were nothing, right? No woo-woo. Oh, but they get to this place where they understand all of this, right? Everything else is part of me, but I am me. Oh, and I am. Not even I am me, I am. Because there's peony and there's what peony is observing. What if what peony is observing is me? There you go. Now we've entered into all the highest spiritual principles of quantum, observer, subject, effect, and all that, right? So this freedom or liberation from your issue, right? It is simply an ongoing process of de-identification. It just happens to be congruent with what we call enlightenment. So call it whatever word you want. Not only do you get to feel better about what's going on, you get to, if you want, be in a more spiritually aware state, a spiritually more conscious state. And that is enlightenment. We also call it non-dualism, right? And right here on the back of this book, it says that Dr. Hawkins is the founder of the path of devotional non-duality. Go figure. Yeah, his work very much overlaps with this work because at the end of the day, it's all the same. It's all the same. I'm going to skip over this. I will send this out. I want to meet this last moment before we go into the process, if you don't mind. And the process should not take more than, I don't know, 5 minutes. I'm going to tell you a quick story. Okay, that story is about the monk who crossed the river. Does anyone know that story? Yeah, it's a Zen koan. It's a short story. There's 2 monks by this raging river. I mean, that river's not raging, but it's raging. It's raging, and a woman can't cross it. She doesn't even know how to swim. Monks are not allowed to touch females, really bodies, especially of females. But one of the monk picks her up and crosses the river. After they cross the river, the monk drops her off. She says, thank you. She walks away. They continue walking. And the other monk turns to the monk that carried the woman and says, I can't fucking believe you did that. Well, he didn't say fucking, but he was very angry. He was very angry. So what's going on? The monk that carried the woman said, I already left her. I had already put her down back there. What are you carrying? What are you carrying still? This isn't about like letting go, right? So much it is as if rules and ethics and contexts are still like supporting one's awakening, right? Like that monastic rule, don't touch woman. I mean, it's meant to support their awakening, is it not? Like, yeah, that's conducive for awakening, but it's not meant to replace it. The younger monk sees the rule as a context, right? In general, we don't touch women, but with compassion and discernment, we can make an exception or a one-time exception. We are meeting the moment in the reality. There is another story of, do you know this one? The scorpion in the meditation hall. Everyone is meditating in the meditation hall, okay? It is holy as hell. And everyone's zenned out. And suddenly there's a scorpion that comes in. Nobody does a thing, even though people can see it. People don't want to disturb the zenness. They don't want to disturb it. Like everyone's having a blissed out moment. The lead monk gets up, grabs his slipper, and slaps the scorpion and kills it. Goes back, sits down, and re-enters his meditation. So what is the takeaway there, right? Don't kill is the precept. Nobody wanted to not only destroy the Zen atmosphere, but nobody wanted to kill. That is the rule. Like it's a core spiritual rule, if you could call it a spiritual rule. But meeting the here and now, there is an immediate threat to the safety of the people in the room. So the person who killed the scorpion is choosing to live in like living wisdom, right? Instead of dead literalism. He protects the students, returns to stillness. That's exactly what the concept of in Buddhism, upaya, we call it, the skillful means. By this spiritual technology, it's not about having the car alarm or taking out the car alarm or having fear and not having fear. There's no more extremisms. You can adapt to whatever the condition is, whatever the moment is, whatever the context is.